This is something that gives me great pause and great anxiety to talk about. This is not something that I've really talked about publicly before, but I feel like I need to talk about it because this is where it would be most relevant.
Hey there, how's it going, everybody? This is Everything in Poderation, the internet culture podcast. And what is more internet culture than cancel culture, which is what we're talking about today. I'm going to just cancel myself to get it over with before someone else does it for me. I'm Daly and I'm absolutely canceled.
I'm Robert and I am ready to clap back. Is that how you do it?
Yeah, with in between every word.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Colin, and I have to call out one of the listeners of our show. I don't know if I'm not going to go as far as say you're canceled, but I got to talk about a hot take. Mr. David Portnov.
Oh man, I'm so scared. If
Call
I were
out.
David right
Call
now,
out.
I'd be so fucking scared.
Mr. David Portnov, we need to have a conversation. Okay? You can reply to this podcast or email us your reply to what I'm about to say, but I you follow us on Twitter and you like our stuff, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you. You leave long, kind comments, and you like to give your thoughts, and you give us something to talk about behind the scenes in the show. We appreciate you. Glad you're a listener.
All good things.
However, I just so happened to stumble upon your Twitter bio, and within your Twitter bio, you say Yakuza 5 is the best Yakuza game. Now, let me tell you something.
Oh no.
I recently finished Yakuza 5. Not a bad game. I love the Yakuza series. Big fan.
Should we say spoiler alert here? I don't know how far you're going to go.
No, I'm not going to get into spoiler territory. But to say that Yakuza 5 is the best Yakuza game, I don't know, man. I don't think.
Is it a cancelable offense?
Might be on that line, teetering on the fence. I'm just saying that Yakuza 5 is probably about 20 hours too long.
Ooh, the hot take of the day, guys.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun.
Yakuza 5 is way too long and needed to cut some content, and the story was straight up fucking ridiculous. David, if you're going to sit here and tell me that Yakuza 5 is better than Yakuza 0, we might need to have a conversation.
Or Like a Dragon. I think Like a Dragon might be probably one of the best.
Now, full
Yakuza
disclosure,
games
I
I've
haven't played the whole Yakuza series. I still have 6. I still have Like a Dragon to play. I haven't played Ishin or Kenzan, any of the Japanese only ones that hopefully we get ported over here. And
Or
Japanese coming to
Yakuza-
PS5 soon.
Yakuza Dark Souls. Dead Souls.
Yakuza Dead
Zombies.
Souls. Haven't played that one either, but a lot of people pretty unanimously say that one's bad. It's just a spinoff where you kill zombies. But yeah, David, I am curious what is your defense for thinking Yakuza
David?
5 is the best game?
It's your turn now, David.
Yes, I'm
Make
calling
your
you
case.
out, and I'll be disappointed if I don't hear from you because Yakuza 5 is suffers from feature creep. It tries to do a lot, and I appreciate a lot of what it tries to do, but ultimately it just ends up being too much, and it doesn't have the strongest story by any means. Kiryu just kind of gets dragged back into doing Tojo Clan shit.
All right. So I haven't played any of the Yakuza games, so I can't comment on it. But you have officially been called out, David. No, we appreciate you. Thanks for commenting the way that you do. We appreciate you. And Colin just doesn't appreciate your taste in Yakuza games. You're both big Yakuza fans, but you have apparently the wrong opinion. And hey, having the wrong opinion, that's in the realm of cancel culture, isn't it?
It is. And I also just want to say, David, sorry.
Sorry for all that.
Feel called out
For having that whole thing about you.
At the very least, even if you don't respond, just remember you'll be the person who didn't use the first 5 minutes of their podcast to call out one human being.
We're gonna start doing that at the beginning of every podcast.
Yeah,
so
we're just gonna start calling out
this
our
week
listeners.
it's David. Next week Brandon, I guess. No, I do want to shout out to Brandon here because we put out on our Twitter that we were going to be talking about cancel culture today, and we wanted to know, what are your thoughts and feelings about cancel culture? And Brandon had a tweet that I think was very succinct. He said, to me, cancel culture just seems like people getting upset about their actions having consequences. People are allowed to not like you, and they're allowed to want nothing to do with you. These are lessons learned on the playground, where I spent most of my days chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and shooting some b-ball outside of the school.
Oh, wow. That's pretty sick, Daly. Have you thought about
and
making
then a
that
couple
song?
of guys canceled me.
Oh.
All right, so are you leaving everything in pod to pursue your rap career, or?
Yes, I will be heading to Bel Air, as it so happens.
I see.
So this is my last episode.
Yeah.
No, this is but next episode, just a quick heads up before we get in deep here, we'll be talking about Mortal Kombat, where people cancel each other the most.
Well, in a very fatal way, almost.
Yes.
Yeah. And when by Mortal Kombat, we mean the brand new 2021 movie with the Wub Wub soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
So as we did with our Justice League episode, part of that will be spoiler free and part of that will be spoilerific. So just maybe watch that movie if you want to hear our spoilerific thoughts.
Yeah,
you know,
on the new film.
I gotta say, I'm so looking forward to that episode because it's gonna be just like a light-hearted, stupid, dumb episode for us. And I'm already like looking ahead to that, but knowing we have an hour ahead of us of like heavy, dark,
yes,
very, very serious topics to talk about. And I'm just like, I want to go play in the playground daily.
Nope.
Can we get through?
Can we get to the Mortal Kombat where we kill each other with
need to learn
fatalities and ripping
on
each other's
the
heads off?
playground?
Yeah, on the playground.
Getting canceled.
I did real quick want to say that to what Brandon said. By the way, Brandon, good friend of mine outside of the show, IRL. To what he said, I would say yes, and like I think this is like one aspect of a really large conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I agree with what he's saying, but that's not the only aspect of it.
Right. So, Daly, why don't you navigate us to where
I will.
What the deep waters of cancel culture?
Right. So, as we put on our flippers here for our deep dive, I guess base information. If you haven't familiarized yourself with the concept of canceling, congratulations, you're in a very nice part of the internet that I wished I lived there, apparently. But canceling, it's hard to define because it can be anywhere from like, oh, we don't like this person because X, to we need to actively dogpile on this person because X. Typically, all this takes place on the internet, but there are wide-reaching consequences of canceling that can affect people's livelihood or their relationships, the things that, happen IRL as well. And this has been a phenomenon for as long as we've had Twitter, pretty much. I recently read Ron Johnson's "So You've Been Publicly Shamed." And I mean, he was talking about the advent of the Twitter mob all the way back in like 2008. So if you're a Zoomer, it's about as old as you.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
It's been here your whole life.
Just like fidget spinners.
Just like fidget spinners. We don't understand fidget spinners, but we love them.
Yeah, they spin. How do they work? I don't get it.
Magnets?
Yes.
Just like magnets. Thank you.
But that does bring something up, though, that like we, like us three, are collectively among one of the last generations where we aren't completely growing up in the public eye in a lot of senses. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not blasting everything we're doing on social media when we were like small kids, or like our parents were blasting, us growing up on their social medias, right? Like, I have a lot of friends on their Facebook that show their kids doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, they're toddlers, they're walking, or like, they're hanging out with their kids, just all kinds of stuff. And a lot. I mean, that gets into like the conversation behind like, oh, should people be doing that because kids can't give consent necessarily, et cetera, et cetera. But my point is, like, a lot of these kids are growing up in the public eye and they don't have a choice.
Your whole life, including all your lovely awkward phases, are there for the public to peruse.
Yeah, I mean, MySpace was like right there when we were like, I don't know, when I was like 12, I think, when MySpace started to blow up, like 11 or 12.
Yeah, I'm
after that,
really
it was Facebook
sure
when I was like 14. But like, so we
there's
were like right on that
some
cusp.
Videos of me doing just embarrassing kid shit on MySpace somewhere.
Is
Maybe
your
I'll get canceled for that.
Documented?
Anyway.
Oh no.
Moving on. So I wanted to now that we know what canceling is, I wanted to ask the question, why do we cancel people? Because I think part of the thorny issue within cancel culture is that there's different answers to this.
Mm-hmm. I would say the leading reason is justice, right? Because we want justice, and it's a very Robespierrean. I think that's how you say his name. It's a very Robespierre kind of way of doing justice. Where if we travel back to the French Revolution, where I think they were mad at kings and stuff, so they they developed.
Cake.
They developed a big chef's knife that would behead people and called it the guillotine, which is a pretty badass name. And that is basically a symbol of the proletariat, the lowly, humans of society, the dregs, the poor, the weak, being able to band together and finally take down a person in power, the king, right? And I think cancel culture is the modern day guillotine, in that it's a way for all of us lowly, pathetic people on Twitter to band together and in sheer numbers be able to call out someone who is in power more often than not for something bad that they've done. And we can finally get justice.
Yeah. That's actually a really pretty succinct way to put it, I would think. And I'm glad we're doing this episode because I think in a lot of ways, this very topic is exactly the sort of like topic that fits on this podcast. Like everything in Poderation, everything in moderation. This is a topic with a lot of nuance. It requires a sit down and have a long form conversation about like what it means to be canceled, like when it should and shouldn't use. I mean, there's just so many aspects of this, and sitting down and having a conversation about it is the best way to, I think, handle this. Talking about cancel culture isn't something that can easily be talked about over something like Twitter, is what I'm getting at.
But then why does it always happen on Twitter?
Funny,
it
isn't
sure
it?
does. It sure does. I guess I would answer, like, Twitter's the most public facing platform at this point. Like, not everyone's on Facebook. Facebook's weird. Facebook's got its own issues, but I think people that we don't know are more accessible on Twitter. And I think that you hit on something there, Robert, for sure, where it's like we're ultimately wanting to do good. It's like this person did something bad and it hurt people, and we should let them know that. And maybe if it's bad enough, then we demand that there be consequences. Because I think it does feel, it comes out of that feeling of powerlessness when you're like a French peasant versus Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake, versus, Jeff Bezos with his empire, and then the average Twitter user. That's where we're at now.
Yeah. But I don't know if we're going to be canceling Jeff Bezos anytime soon, right?
We were going to try.
Yeah. And so where I'm coming from with this is I think my opinions of cancel culture have evolved. Just like my opinions of most things that kind of change over time, because that's hopefully how humanity tends to work.
Yeah, it turns out that's how human nature works. Yeah.
Yeah, we learn and change the way we look at life based on those things we learn. And that's actually one of the big things I want to hone in on, is that people deserve a chance to learn. And sometimes cancel culture doesn't allow for that. And that's why I'd like to introduce my my tenets of two types of cancel culture. If you look at the PowerPoint, slide 7, in your attachments, the two types
Will
I
you
have
make
here.
this PowerPoint?
You don't
Because
see
we
it?
can link it down below.
Oh, okay. One is for accountability, right? And that is the core nugget of cancel culture, right? I mean, it bloomed from Black Twitter to where it is now, where it's widely used by, spoiler alert, mostly white people who are trying to virtue signal, probably. But its core tenet is accountability, holding those in power accountable for their actions. It's a way to say, you might be popular, you're a famous comedian, or you're a powerful politician, or you're the richest person on earth, but you know what? You have opinions that are continuing to support racism in America, or sexism in the workplace, or things that are actively hurting our communities. And because of that, we want to call that out and be able to take you down a peg, whether that's organizing a massive boycott, or somehow preventing people from streaming your music or supporting you in one way or another, right? We want those consequences so you understand that your bad actions, your bad opinions are harming people. And I think that is like fine. That's a very just and morally justifiable way to exact cancel culture. But then there's cancel culture as trashing, where what you're doing is like, yes, you're going to call out someone for a bad tweet or a bad opinion, and like, yeah, that's a bad take, sure. But then you go as far as to abuse them and try to strip them of power. And at that point, you get to the point where the punishment doesn't match the transgression.
Mm.
And then that really calls into question, who is in the wrong here? Is it the person who tweeted a bad take? After like years of not tweeting any bad takes, but just that one, right? Are they in the wrong? Or is it this mob of people who are willing to hurt someone they don't know personally, just so they feel like they got their social justice points for the day? Like, that's right, I'm standing up for you black people by calling out this famous person. See, I'm one of the good boys. You know, who's more in the wrong there?
Yeah. I think the other part of that too is so when a group of people are out to cancel someone for doing A, B, and C thing, whatever it is, no matter what their history is in terms of saying something inflammatory or what have you, what is the ultimate goal of attempting to cancel someone, right? Like, what are you trying to boot them off the platform, right? Are you trying to get them to delete their account? In some cases, are you trying to get them fired from their job, like ruin their life? Like, what's the end goal and where does it stop? Because like in some cases, like it comes across as like some people won't be happy until this person's dead. And that gets a little fishy, and it goes back to what Robert was saying about learning and growing as a person, because especially if it's someone who's like, hey, maybe they just hold a point of view, or they said something that was off color, or what have you, so you're gonna try and ruin their life, and likely what you're gonna do is you're gonna end up pushing them to double down on whatever that thing is, or push them away entirely, you know? And yeah, I mean, that's not healthy in any sense. It's not healthy.
Yeah. I think there's a lot, the reason why cancel culture has been taken as like an inherently negative thing versus like a cause for accountability is because there's no stopping point. There's no like, we all called you out so that you would issue a public apology, or like so that you would change something that you were doing, or so that you would realize that you were being insensitive toward, X issue. That's not where it ends, is the thing. Instead, it's this continual dogging of like, well, you did problematic thing one time, so you're permanently irrelevant toward anything that you're trying to talk about or grow toward. And it's just very disappointing that's where we're at, that if you have your life online, which you likely do because that's just the way things are now, you have to watch what you say at all times. My girl, which I'll still claim her as my girl, Lindsay Ellis, called this the beast. This constant worry that you're going to say something or tweet something or have something misconstrued and then be canceled for it, or have people say like, misunderstand it purposefully in order to be like, well, you clearly believe in something problematic because you said something that could be construed as problematic and therefore you canceled.
Yeah. I mean, in response to our Super Straights video, I mean, there's someone said to us something to the effect of like, because we hold these points of views, we're perpetrating rape or something like that, or perpetuating rape rather,
or legitimizing, I think was the word they use.
Yeah. And
wild.
I was like,
right.
I have no idea how your mental gymnastics go from A to B there at all. Like,
I mean,
at all.
Let's go down that far right rabbit hole real quick. We say super straights are a dumb identity. They say I am super straight because a trans person tried to rape me by saying if I don't have sex with them, I'm transphobic. So I'm either transphobic or raped. That's, to them, that's their worldview, right? And because that's how they see the world, when we say your identity as a super straight is dumb, they think we're saying it's okay for you to be raped by a trans person. And when you examine that middle part of the argument, that is, trans people are out to just get the sex all the time, no matter what, there's so many things that fall apart and break apart, right? But
okay, J.K. Rowling, yeah. Yeah,
but they believe in it, therefore they're able to make those mental gymnastics, right? I think another one, if we're bringing up Lindsay Ellis, right, who did recently do the whole mask off video, right? For her, it was comparing Raya the Last Dragon to Avatar the Last Airbender legitimizes Asian genocide.
Oh, it's a jump.
It's a jump.
It's a leap.
And when you examine their jump, it's that Lindsay is basically saying all Asian shows are the same, or all Asian themes are the same, and therefore all Asians are simple, and therefore it's justified to genocide the Asians. I guess, is that the train of thought?
It's somewhere around there. And she did make a good point in the mask off video of pointing out that it's not a lot of Asian American people or straight up Asian people telling her this. It's white folks on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And she was very, very kind to be canceled at this time. It was very convenient for us to have her as kind of a case study. We watched the canceling happen real time. Her name started trending on Twitter, and then it was like, wait, what is happening? And it was like, she deleted her Twitter entirely. And it's like, why? What happened? And it's like, oh, bad tweet. It's like, oh, what was the bad tweet? A very lukewarm take about a movie that people haven't seen, largely because there was already controversy around it, and comparing it to Avatar: The Last Airbender, of which we can, a lot of modern stories have taken quite a bit of inspiration from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I think that's going to be a statement I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there. Whoa, controversial.
Yeah.
But so that's what happened. People were like, Lindsay, you're being racist. Oh my gosh, just apologize. You're being a terrible person.
Yeah. And what makes that so tough to me is that the people who are trying to do the canceling, right, are often doing it in bad faith in that example, right? Because they're reading into the one tweet and they're reading anti-Asian sentiments in it. Whereas had you have seen the movie, which I guess I haven't, if I'm being transparent, I haven't seen Raya, right? But the way that Lindsay lays out that movie in her mask off video, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I would watch that and say, there's a lot of Avatar here, huh? because there's just a lot of plot threads that follow it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it's set in Southeast Asia, right? Like the fact that that's the thing most people know about the movie, that it's like based in Southeast Asian culture, I think that maybe primed a lot of people to see, oh, Lindsay just thinks one Asian-based show is the same as another Asian-based show. Therefore, she thinks all Asian things are the same, when that's not quite the case.
Right.
Yeah, it's easy to make those excuse me. It's easy to make those snap judgments. And for a lot of people out there too, especially with someone who has a following like Lindsay does, you know, you're getting so many different people seeing her content. I will say that you guys kind of hit on something already that I see on Twitter a lot. We all see it on Twitter a lot. That usually it's a lot of people that come from the majority that are trying to, how do I put this, be offended for marginalized people in a lot of cases, even when they are like, hey guys, like, don't feel offended by this, so don't worry about it. They're like, no, this is offensive for you, let me be offended for you.
Yeah.
That's the way it comes across.
She did a good point of pointing that out too, where it's like, listen to Asian voices, and it was just this cacophony of presumably white people on Twitter telling her to do that, and it's like, I'm trying to, but it's very hard when you're all telling me the same thing and then not giving room for those actual people to speak up.
Yeah, it very much comes across as like, you know, with the Black Lives Matter movement, it's like, yeah, of course Black Lives Matter, but you got a lot of people that it comes across like yeah, Black Lives Matter. No, shut up, you black people. Like, I'm trying to like stand up for you, and it's all about me because I'm standing up for you.
Yeah. Like, there's something to be said about someone who is white, like speaking up for those views, right? Because just generally speaking, unfortunately, we live in a world where white people have the most speaking power, right? So it's good that they're able to prop up those voices. But then you have to prop up those voices. That's the thing. You have to follow through, right? And speaking as the 1/6 of Asian in our 3-person podcast here, right? Because I'm half Asian, right? To say listen to Asian people is also a tiny bit flawed in that it assumes that all Asians are a hive mind and we all feel the same way about everything.
Is that not the way it works?
Yep, that is. That's why Japan and Korea are best friends since the beginning, because they're basically this. They're all basically Chinese, right?
Yeah,
that's the vibe that I get. That's underneath that. Listen to all Asians, right? Because it implies they're all Chinese anyway. They're all the same Asian anyway, right? When that's really not the case.
Yeah, I mean, that could also be said with, like, you know, people are still individuals, you know, everyone has their own individual experience. Like, yeah, there are some like recurring problems here and there, i.e., you know, cop violence on black people and other marginalized groups. But like it's one of those things where, you know, everyone's experience is going to be different, and you can't just completely speak like with 100% certainty for one given group of people. It's just not how it works.
Yes. But people do that. And some of the people that do that is, I'm gonna introduce a vocabulary word here: woke scold. Woke scold. So the two parts of that are woke. Obviously, like, I'm so woke. I know about you know, current social issues, and I take the correct stance on those issues. And then scold being the part where it's like, we're gonna call out people when they're not being woke or when they make a bad take. And I don't think there's anything wrong inherently with being like, hey, consider like re-examining your last tweet. It kind of comes off as shitty. It's fine. But when you're like, oh my God, you're super racist for doing X, and I'm not going to explain why it's super racist for having done that, or making those giant leaps of, like you said, you know, that you're super straight, or that you like don't like super straights and therefore you are pro rape. Like, those leaps get in like assumed and That's why people throw crazy accusations at other people that are getting canceled for presumably not being woke enough.
Mm-hmm. It's just about that one little mistake, right? And then the mask comes off, and
mask off,
and then here's the list. Here's the receipts of all the other bad things that person's done, right, in the past whatever many years. Lindsay Ellis dives into that really deep in her video if you haven't seen that yet. But it's just so odd to me that cancel culture, the idea to cancel someone, started in such good faith, right? It started in a place that wanted to hold those in power accountable, right? But now it's being abused to perpetuate abuse to people who don't really deserve it, right? Like, let's take Lindsay Ellis, right? Let's say she did tweet in bad faith that, yes, she sees two Asian-inspired things as the same thing. Therefore, Asian culture is too simple for her or something. Whatever they're reading into it, right? Let's assume that's exactly what Lindsay meant, okay? Well, she doesn't. She didn't. If that's the case, is the culture mob, are we better off helping her learn why that's a bad take? Or are we better off letting her run away off of Twitter, forcing her actually to run away off of Twitter so she can be scooped up by the Ben Shapiros of the world who would sympathize with her for being canceled, just like what Ben did with the Star Wars lady,
Mandalorian,
Kara. I don't watch much Star Wars, but she was canceled.
We know who you're talking about.
She was canceled, and therefore Ben Shapiro, great, smart, opinionated man who has all the right takes, sweeps her up, takes her under his wing, and is like, look, I know you got canceled by the woke mob, but it's okay. You're safe here. You're in the good place now where we're going to protect you because you're still correct. You're allowed to double down on your bad opinions because those guys, that mob out there, they're the ones really in the wrong.
There's some sort of like Star Wars simile or metaphor there.
The dark side, etc.
Something like that.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, if we're gonna pretend Lindsay did have all the truly bad takes that everyone is putting onto her, which again she didn't, wouldn't it be better to help her learn why that's a bad take as opposed to shame her to the point where she is forced to decide between deleting her Twitter or doubling down, or in many cases both?
Yeah. And this is the point where I want to point out the effects of cancel culture, because it goes again beyond just what happens on the internet. I think that there's a huge psychological issue here where the growth is not allowed, and we're turning people that would otherwise be allies into like, oh well shit, like this community treated me so shittily that I'm gonna turn against it. Public shaming used to be a thing that we would do in many countries as like an actual punishment for like stealing or like adultery when that was still on the books and stuff like that. And it was actually outlawed, not because it stopped being effective, because it's like, oh, I don't care if like my neighbor is publicly shamed, I got my own stuff to deal with, or like because cities were larger and therefore there was more anonymity in that. It was stopped because public shaming was too cruel. Like even not just like the whipping, etc., but like putting someone out in the stocks so that you walk by and you know that they committed adultery or whatever. It's too cruel. It psychologically stars that person in such a way that it's hard to continue functioning for the rest of your life. And that's what has happened to some people that have been very publicly shamed, very publicly canceled because of like bad Twitter tweets. Like Justine Sacco, who you might remember as the woman who, like, she was a PR official, which is what gives this all a very ironic tint. But before getting on a plane ride to South Africa, she tweeted, I don't have the verbatim tweet in front of me, but it was like, going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white. Mm-hmm. And it's like, bad tweet, bad take, not funny, not great. But while she was in the air on that like 15-hour flight, it blew up, the tweet, and people blew up at her, understandably, for like, wow, that's a super racist tweet that can be read as super offensive. And from then on, she lost her job in PR, which, again, pretty understandable. But from then on, that haunted her, like, through any job, not even jobs that would involve making tweets on Twitter. And her relationships deteriorated. This is all outlined in that book I mentioned before by Ron Johnson, the So You've Been Publicly Shamed. It's not something that you get over.
Jon Ronson.
It's not something that that guy. I can't. Wait, it's Jon Ronson?
Yeah, it's Jon Ronson.
Ron Johnson.
Yeah, John. It's Ron. Yeah, Jon Ronson. That's
Ron
what it is.
Cancel me for this. Swanson, that guy. But I digress. It's not something people are ever really allowed to get over. Not only like in terms of like your online health for your image, but also for your mental health in your everyday life.
Yeah. So this is something that gives me great pause and great anxiety to talk about. This is not something that I've really talked about publicly before, but I feel like I need to talk about it because this is where it would be most relevant, and how it can affect, like, cancel culture can not only affect the person who's whoever has a platform, but can also affect the people involved with that person and their fans. Okay. So, okay. I'm going to try to keep it short. But there was a time when Colin Moriarty, who was an ex-IGN editor, he went off with a bunch of other editors. They found it kind of funny. Kind of Funny got a huge fan base because they all loved them at Podcast Beyond. Followed Kind of Funny. And there's a lot more you can read about it online. But basically what happened was there was a huge falling out over a tweet of Colin's with the rest of the guys at Kind of Funny. He didn't want to apologize, turned into a big thing, huge mishap. He was attempted to be canceled. And there was articles about him being a misogynist and a racist and like all these different things that were completely irrelevant to the tweet he had even sent out. And it was a huge attempt to cancel him. He didn't end up getting canceled. He ended up leaving Kind of Funny, forming his own company, doing his own podcast. And I ever since Kind of Funny, me personally, I'd been a huge fan of his, been covering PlayStation for a really long time. And I understand he's a controversial figure. I don't agree with all of his viewpoints. Just throwing that out there as a disclaimer. Okay. When this affected me, and I'm sorry, this is really anxious for me to talk about this, but how this affected me was, back in 2019, there was PAX West was about to happen. Okay. Big game convention. And Colin and his co-host Chris were going to be there. They're going to do a panel talking about Sacred Symbols, their PlayStation podcast. Fairly innocent stuff. They applied, had that panel. It was approved by Penny Arcade. And okay, they were set. Well, just about maybe a month or two before that happened, it was canceled.
Like the normal use of that word is in it. The event is not happening anymore.
Yes, the event is not happening.
Right.
And they did not give them a clear reason as to why it was canceled. So that led people to speculate it was because, Colin is considered a controversial figure in the game space, blah, 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 because of his politics or whatever, et cetera, even though he maybe leans center left is probably how I would put him. I wouldn't even really call him conservative. So the reason why this affected me was because during that summer, I had been on his podcast. Okay. I flew out to LA and I was on his podcast, Fireside Chats at the time, which was an interview show. Just talked about band stuff, pretty innocent things. Okay. And it was right around the time of PAX happening that year that the episode with him that I was on was published. Now, when it was announced that Colin was going to be at PAX, like physically going to be there, he got physical threats on his person. I'm talking like milkshakes thrown at him being punched and assaulted, that sort of thing. So I'm seeing discourse within groups that I'm a part of that are, people that are kind of funny fans and things like that. It's extremely stressful, And so here I am like going to PAX, like I'm feeling extremely anxious because I basically am in the public eye with this person who is being threatened. And here I think that, like, is there a possibility that I could be threatened or assaulted? And luckily nothing happened, long story short. The thing got canceled and, a lot of people were really pissed about that. It was a whole controversy. But that's how, like, stuff like cancel culture can directly and indirectly affect people and the people associated with them. And because of that whole fiasco, Colin since canceled his interview show. He was welcoming essentially strangers into his house, and he stopped that because he was afraid he was going to get hurt. And quite frankly, I think Colin is really low on the list of people that send out offensive things. And I've listened to it a long time, and I have a lot of, like, some of his views I straight up don't agree with. Okay. But I think he is an inherently bad person that's worth getting canceled over. But that's just another one of these examples, like in Lindsay's case, that like she had
people were being called out for not denouncing her. And it's like, why haven't you said anything about Lindsay? Why haven't you said anything about Lindsay? Oh, so you endorse her views. That fun diatribe for everyone else.
Exactly. And so my fandom of Colin's and me being associated with him is something that I've been very apprehensive about talking about publicly. I don't really openly talk about it because I'm afraid of the repercussions. I'm afraid that I'm going to have judgment cast upon me just because I associate with this person because I listen to their podcast. And that's, like I said, like, I don't believe that just because you listen to someone or anyone else that makes you a bad person, that doesn't even mean that the person that you're listening to is a bad person.
Right.
And so that's what I'm saying. There's like, this is just another case study, and that's how it's affected me personally.
Yeah, I think to me that opens the book to two things I want to bring up about cancel culture, in that we've already kind of covered the lack of forgiveness, right? Even though a lot of people
never forget.
Right. Even though a lot of people will say, like, you should apologize. Why haven't you apologized yet? Right. Even if you did apologize, even if you did a fake PR apology, even, it's never going to be enough. Even if it's sincere, even if you truly learned your lesson, it's never going to be enough, because at that point, it's not about discourse. It's not about whether you've learned your lesson or learned anything. It's just about you being shamed. That's the impetus and the conclusion of when you are the target of it, right? So one, there is never forgiveness. Two, there is never the admission that humans are multifaceted beings, right? Let's take something really innocent and simple, okay? What's something childish that I hate? I never liked Game of Thrones. I've always thought it was boring. Whenever I saw like snippets of an episode while roommates or friends were watching it, I was like, how do millions of people like this? This is a stupid fucking show. It's Lord of the Rings light. And I also don't like Lord of the Rings. That's another, low milk toast, low stakes take. But I don't like Lord of the Rings. I also think it's very boring, okay? But I also really, really like Persona. So now all of a sudden, I am a two-sided human being. To Lord of the Rings fans, I am the scum of the earth. I am the devil. I am hated. I am misunderstood, because how can someone not like Lord of the Rings, right? But then to Persona fans, I'm one of the good ones, because they get it. I get it. I get them. They get me, right? Like, yeah, I'm one of the cool, good people, but I'm multifaceted. I can be a good person in the Persona fandom, and I can be a bad person in the Lord of the Rings fandom, right? Now let's swap Lord of the Rings and Persona with like high stakes political issues, right? Gendered issues, sex, trans issues, right? Like, once you throw those things in there, once someone has one bad take about any of those high stakes issues, they are a bad person. And you assume that they probably have bad takes about all of these other things, right? And that's not to say, like, if we take J.K. Rowling as an example, I do still firmly believe that her power and platform and the fact that she is a very anti-trans person is very problematic. I am willing to say I don't think she's necessarily a great person, right? But at the same time, her crazy mind is also responsible for your childhood. So she can be multifaceted. There can be things about her that are good and things about her that are bad. And with her, there's that problem of if you support buying a Harry Potter book, you're tacitly supporting trans rights or anti-trans, not rights. Yes. No trans rights.
No rights.
Yeah.
Trans
and
crime. I don't know.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's not like you buy a Harry Potter book and on the book, there's a sticker that says, "Thank you for hating the trans," right? Like, that's not how it works. You just buy the Harry Potter book because you like Harry Potter, and then your money goes to someone who happens to not support trans rights. So to say that everyone who's a fan of Harry Potter is against trans people is extremely disingenuous, right? Because again, everyone is a multifaceted human being. Everyone has different takes about different things. And that's something cancel culture, I feel like, fails to get, in that, to bring it back to Lindsay Ellis or to Colin Moriarty, let's do Colin Moriarty because I feel like we've already talked out Lindsay Ellis quite a bit. Colin Moriarty had one bad take about women, right? Wasn't his tweet something about making fun of women on International Women's Day?
Peace and quiet, #Day Without a Woman on National Women's Day.
Right.
It's very boomer humor.
Yeah, and I agree. Point. That's a very bad take. And like, in a vacuum, I understand why so many people took that the wrong way, right? And I mean, I'm still of the persuasion that maybe Colin Moriarty's views about women's rights, I could see that being problematic for some people, right? But at the same time, he has a very successful Patreon. Many people listen to his hot takes about shit that doesn't matter, like PlayStation games. Right? Like, when we're talking about women's rights versus is God of War good or not, one of those things is important. The other one is just stupid fun shit that I love, but it's stupid fun shit, right?
Women's rights.
Exactly. So I can disagree with that one really bad take of his that is pretty high stakes, but I can still think in some ways I understand why people will come to him for his hot takes about PlayStation, because they're able to divorce the bad take from the good takes of his, because he's a multifaceted being.
Right. And I also don't want to run the risk of being like, I don't want to be like the defense party for Colin over here or anything like that, because I'm extremely biased. I will say that outright. But like, yeah, so it definitely was just a joke. And he is like fairly open about like being challenged, you know, and having a conversation. He definitely gives hot takes. But he's definitely not without, like, you know, he puts himself up for debate. That's what I'll say.
I feel like the idea of let's be critical of the things that we love. Let's be critical of the narratives that we love. Let's be critical of, you know, the shows and the songs and the people that we love. It's fine to be like, realize those flaws and be like, I understand that this is problematic in X way, but it's still like a guilty pleasure, or it's still something that I find value in. That's the thing, is that there's nuance. Amazing. Everything has nuance.
Who'd have thought?
And there are those occasions where it's like, I feel the need to like kill my hero, in the sense of like, I don't feel like I can go back and read Harry Potter and still feel the same like magical way because of the things that J.K. Rowling has said. And that's fine. But it's also fine for people to be like, I'm still going to go back and watch those videos or read those books from this problematic person, and know that they're transgressions and be aware of that, but also be like, but this is cool stuff.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that too, like, what if it's someone who, like, maybe they're an artist or they've made something, right? But what they've done is like pretty objectively terrible. Like, probably one of my go-to examples is the lead singer of the band Lost Prophets, and how basically he was like trying to fuck babies essentially.
Yikes.
Yeah, very dark, very fucked up, like pretty objectively terrible. And so, but at the same time, Lost Prophets had some like charting songs. Like they had some songs that were pretty big for a while there. And so how people view that, and if it's okay for them to like go back and listen to that sort of thing, that's I think that's going to vary person to person. But at the same time, it's like, okay, like that is like, okay, that dude is canceled as far as I'm concerned. You're done.
I mean, it's the death of the author, basically, right?
Yeah.
In that, like, there are people who can't listen to Michael Jackson anymore because of, what was it, Neverland or whatever. There are people who can't listen to R. Kelly anymore, or Chris Brown, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I lean toward that too. When I know the artist is kind of a shitty person and they hold such deeply problematic views, it is harder for me to enjoy their art. I don't think I mean, I never enjoyed Harry Potter in the first place. I mean, that was okay. It was fine. But if I were a big fan, I think with where I stand right now, I don't think I could continue to be a fan of Harry Potter, because where I land is death of the author isn't something I can really jive with, right? But I can understand people who would still want to read Harry Potter, because it's not like you're saying, oh, you're a fan of Michael Jackson, you must like touching children. Like, no, that's not.
And there's that jump.
Yeah, that's not exactly it. In the same way of, oh, you listen to R. Kelly, you must like to piss in a closet. Or date underage girls, right? Like, that's not quite the same thing. And I think that also brings up the fact that cancel culture sort of doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like Louis C.K. famously canceled for being a pretty skeevy kind of sexual predatory individual.
Yeah.
He did a career hiatus for 10 months. And then when he came back, sold out shows, controversial hot takes. Everybody loved him again. And at that point, canceling didn't negatively affect his career. If anything, it pretty much bolstered his career, because the other side sympathized with him more. Now he's a victim. He's a victim of the cancel culture mob. And I want to support him for that, because he's been wronged. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to touch upon too that where does this go as far as people who weren't plugged in? You know what I'm saying? Because cancel culture isn't going to necessarily apply to any of those people. They're like, because if you're not up on what the hell's happening or who's getting canceled on Twitter or what have you, you're going to be like, I don't fucking know, and I don't care. Like, some people just don't care.
Yeah.
Like, oh, J.K. Rowling, what now? Like, I don't fucking care. Whatever. Like, I just like Harry Potter. I mean,
her book sales shot up in the summer of 2020. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like with anything else. It's like who be what now? It's like I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna. Who the fuck's Lindsay Ellis?
Yeah. I mean, that her mask off video, like 1 million views instantly. I'm very curious about how her books will do. Now she's got a pre-order for her sequel to the first of a trilogy or a saga of sci-fi books that she has going on right now, and it's wild, y'all. It's I think that's the problem with this conversation, is that there is nuance. It's like, yeah, I'm going to support people calling out injustice, but I can also recognize simultaneously that the mob doesn't always get it right, and nor does it dole out the correct punishment, and sometimes that punishment has no effect whatsoever. It's the nature of the world that we live in, and it's really frustrating, especially when people, quote unquote, like, get away with things. When we hear that J.K. Rowling has made money off of like being transphobic and writing horrendous 3,000 word blogs about how trans folks are gonna stalk women in bathrooms.
Yep, that's how that works.
That's how that works. I think it's still good to talk about that and to have discussions about that, but I'm not getting out the pitchforks, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and much in the same way that you have the internet trickle down of memes. So in case you don't know, usually Reddit has the memes, then they spread to Twitter, then they spread to Facebook, then they spread to everywhere else. Cancer culture has kind of done the same thing, because the people that aren't plugged in, right? Even the people that aren't plugged in, that hardly get on social media platforms, that maybe only are connected to the outside world through network cable news, right? They even know what cancel culture is now, right? We're to the point now where Congress, like the Senate and House floors, the phrase cancel culture is getting thrown around pretty flagrantly, most notably right now because of Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to where I want to go in that, right? I think for a good while here, we've been firing our lasers at the left, like the far left, the wokies, right?
Yeah.
Which
wakey.
Now
Yeah,
we're gonna go back to Brandon, who said, like, people are allowed to not like you, they're not allowed to want nothing to do with you, and these are lessons learned on the playground. He said, to me, cancel culture just seems like people getting upset about their actions having consequences, and I think this is where that's applicable.
Yeah, well, because the thing is, I want to be clear. The three of us here are pretty left-leaning people. I assume, I think. So the fact that we're scolding the left, maybe you might be seeing this as, oh, these guys are secretly alt-right. Their mask is finally off. They're secretly right-wing people. They want to eat babies or some shit. I don't know. The frogs
Delicious.
are gay. I don't know, but
The frogs are gay.
The frogs are gay now.
Yeah, something about globalists. I don't know, some stupid bullshit right-wing talking points. But the thing is, the fact that the quote-unquote woke left, the quote-unquote cancel culture mob, the fact that they're abusing cancel culture, the fact that they're pointing the cancel culture laser at anything and everything that says one wrong thing and are holding all these receipts to prove that all of these people are wrong, even Lindsay, Ellis, or ContraPoints, who I would argue pretty left-leaning people, if I had to guess. I don't know.
There was a good point about Ford at the time being called out and being like, wow, you're just like super anti-trans, and then it's like philosophy tube, Abigail Thorne.
Yeah.
Down the line, isn't it funny how things work?
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
And, it's that common argument of, like, the left is eating itself, like, this is why they win. Not that I think the us versus them mentality is the right way to look at it, but it shouldn't be the us versus us, too, right? Like, that's not the right way either. And that the left holds this, like, really high standard. Everyone has to be super duper pure. And once they do one little fuck up, they're unpure. We're going to send them away.
Fucking purity politics.
Yeah. So the fact that the left abuses the cancel culture thing like that allows the right to run with it. And
now they're using it as a scapegoat.
Exactly. They're saying, oh, the left is trying to cancel me. I, Ted Cruz, who abandoned my own fucking people in a once-in-a-generation, snowstorm.
Statewide blackout?
Yeah, rolling blackouts because Texas is so independent, we don't get power from other people. I'm going to go to Cancun, and now the left is trying to cancel me for not doing my job. Like, that's the stupid shit he can say and get away with, and that's the stupid shit that right-wing voters are going to be able to empathize with, because now Ted Cruz is a victim of the left-wing cancel mob.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, the people that, especially the older voters and that sort of group that are voting Republican, are going to hear that and be like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, cancel culture, it's stupid because they just want to get rid of our ideals and they don't want the right to be in the government. These fucking lefties. And it's just so completely reductive, and it's gross. And did we put ourselves here? I don't know. Kind of starting to feel like just we're kind of, this is the consequence of our own actions.
Whoa,
Consequences
actions have consequences.
Oh, who'd have thought? But people like Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz, apparently it's cancel culture. And no, I definitely didn't have sex with a 17-year-old girl, or or in Jim Jordan's case, cover up Ohio State's sex abuse case with the wrestling team.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And
it's a big old bait and switch between accountability and cancel culture, and it's like those two things aren't mutually exclusive. They're not synonyms, I don't think, but people are trying to say that they are.
Yeah, it goes back to what I said earlier, where there's two types of cancel culture, accountability and trashing. And right now, trying to hold Matt Gaetz accountable for possibly having sexual relations with minors, that is accountability. What he is trying to pass it off as is trashing. The left is trashing him and trying to sully his reputation.
Slander.
Yeah.
Also, I'm gonna hit on Jim Jordan anyway, and
gross.
Anytime I
Hit
can.
him.
Anytime I
Smack
can
him.
in this podcast, because fuck Jim Jordan. First of all, this is extremely personal for me because he represents my district, my congressional district back in Ohio, from where I grew up. So I have a very personal attachment, and I also graduated from Ohio State. So I apologize in advance if you, the audience, ever gets annoyed at me talking about this. But fuck Jim Jordan. He can go to fucking prison.
Probably. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
He can
literally
rot in prison.
Yeah. But that's the thing. The right is using anti-cancel culture as a get out of jail free card. Right. To me, the most prominent example is during Trump's impeachment trial, where his defense lawyers literally said this is constitutional cancel culture. When your accountability weapon can be used as a defense in the highest court of law, like literally probably one of the well, not the Supreme Court, but that is one of the biggest trials you can fucking have, where you need to have an ironclad defense. And if their defense can be essentially saying these wokies are trying to cancel everyone, including the president, maybe the wokies have fucked up somewhere.
Somewhere down the line, things have gotten very muddled, and no one's getting the results that I think that they want to happen. I think that trolls have definitely co-opted a lot of this and are like, well, we just got to wait until someone slips up and then we'll be in the wings with the receipts and we'll take them down a peg. Which I think was like very, very evident with in the aftermath of what happened with Lindsay Ellis. People were like, Jenny's next, like Jenny Nicholson, YouTuber who often talks about Beanie Babies and My Little Pony stuff. They were like, she's next. She's getting taken down next.
She went to Target for a gigantic stuffed spider. Like, what do you want from her?
What?
Canceled. That's what people want. They want people to disappear, at least from the internet and its happenings. And again, that's not accountability. That's not learning from what you've done. It is that lovely, our new term of the century. I'm very curious as to like, will the 20th, the roaring 20s? We're in the roaring 20s. Will it be the canceling 20s?
Cancel 20s.
So honest to God,
20s.
we might get an alternative definition in Webster's dictionary for cancel.
I could see it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
There needs to be more nuance, and I think people need to learn the difference between like a good canceling and a bad canceling.
Yeah.
Which again, just people need to learn about. Like, people will act in bad faith, believe it or not.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of people that genuinely don't believe the shit that they're saying.
Yeah, and the thing that bothers me most about it is it boils down to, like, first of all, who the people are on, especially Twitter, who are doing the canceling, right? Because a lot of them hide behind anonymity. I always struggle with that one. Usually they're like what used to be eggs or just like anime profile pictures and just kind of like, going at someone on Twitter. It's a pretty common thing to see. But also just carrying this holier than thou attitude as if no one who is canceling someone else has ever committed a mistake in their entire life. Maybe they didn't do it publicly per se, but you're telling me you've never made an ignorant statement or said something off color or held the wrong point of view, but then later learned, or maybe you still hold the wrong point of view. Like, no one's fucking perfect. Your stuff just might not be posted everywhere on the internet.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys do this, but like I mean, it's because of that I'm fairly careful about like what I post.
The beast hovers above us all.
Modeling.
Yeah,
and I think too where it bothers me as a content creator, as the three of us are content creators. I mean, you'll notice most of our content, if not all of it, is like hour-long podcasts. I think this one's probably going to end up being, I don't know, 10 hours. Who knows? But
strap in, y'all.
Yeah.
We're here for a while.
We're not even done with Act 1. No, but
then it ends in 10 minutes. No, I'm just
yeah. I mean, it might. Who fucking knows? But
yeah.
we do podcasts, right? These are long form discussions, right? And that obviously I've said it a few times before on our show. A lot of our arguments are made in layers because we're having what many adults would call a discussion, not a tweet.
Yes.
Right. And it bothers me when we're taking like left tubers, Jenny Nicholson, ContraPoints, Lindsay Ellis, we're going to cancel them over one tweet when they devote their entire lives as content creators to creating 30-minute, 40-minute, hour-long, 90-minute long videos that are deep dives, that are, you know, well thought out discussions that examine multiple sides of any and every issue to present a full case to you so you understand things from as many dimensions as possible, so then you can make a decision about things. And obviously they lean toward, you know, nudging you to their left-leaning decisions, but they tend to do pretty good jobs of laying out a fully thought out argument, right? One that requires more understanding than reading 140 characters on Twitter, right?
Exactly. And Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it just bothers me that these people are trying to cancel others who are generally left-leaning too. They're one of you, right? Over a tweet, and ignore their bodies of work that have thousands of hours put into it, where you can consume hundreds of hours of it to fully understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, and that touches on like I remember Lindsay Ellis in her video, because I think we all watched that video, but she like says that, you know, people like Donald Trump and I can't remember who else she named, but it's basically said that like they basically became uncancelable in a sense. You know, like they're elevated to the point where like, oh, like people feel like we can't touch these people, but we can certainly touch these people that are pretty much in our in group. You know, we can bring these people down to size. So, but yeah, I mean, but to Robert's earlier point about having a nuanced conversation and why our content is, you know, a podcast of all things. Like, the story that I told in this podcast, there's no way in hell I would have told that over Twitter in a series of tweets. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Just one tweet. Colin Moriarty's thing made me sad. Tweet.
Oh,
you're gonna get God.
I would get lambasted. I absolutely would. You know, and that's what this sort of allows. Like, I realize that there's like, you know, no one's perfect and there's a lot of nuance, and even the situation I was involved in, there's a lot of nuance there, and like I was pretty uncomfortable sharing that. I'm still uncomfortable thinking about it. You know, like I was really anxious during that whole event. You know, and during PAX, like I felt like I had to watch over my shoulder the entire time I was there, and like I just don't think posting that on Twitter and telling that whole story would have gotten my point across without me, you know, being stamped out by some sort of mob. You know. And like somebody probably would have jumped in and said like, oh, well, yeah, but that's what you get for following someone who holds shitty views and blah, blah, blah. And it would have been useless to try and like have a conversation. You know?
Yeah.
So
I think overall that there's this, you can't grow. You can't change your opinions at any point. We're all set in stone. And it's very frustrating. I wish people were allowed to fail, because I think you learn the most from failure. You don't learn as much from a great win, a great job, than you do from a horrible time. And I think that the nature of the internet and the way that everything is forever on the internet, and someone's going to have eyeballs on that and judge you for it, doesn't allow for a lot of failure.
Right.
And I think we're losing something culturally because of that.
Yeah, people don't post their L's either. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, people don't post them going through hardship. They post the good times in their life. I mean, Instagram is a perfect example of that. I know this is a whole other conversation, but I'm just talking about failures in general.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not seeing the growth unless it's someone who just literally posts everything they think, you know, on Twitter, which I'm sure some people do. But like, for the most part, you're seeing people at their best, you know? You're never seeing people when, you know, they like, oh, I just lost my job and I'm like dealing with depression and anxiety. I mean, you're seeing people post about that more and more, but it like, you don't know what that's really like to go through, you know? And people generally keep that shit off of social media. Generally it's a little bit more ideal, or I don't want to say utopic. I just want to say ideal.
People are very aware of what they post and
Right.
any kind of implications that might have, and how people might misconstrue things. And
Yeah.
it's I guess like an unfortunate reality now. Like I'm very aware of, like, I run our podcast Twitter. Hi, you can follow us at Everything in Pod.
Tell Daly she's doing a great job, because she does a great job.
Oh, thank you. But
also
I'm always very
cancel her.
worried
Please try to cancel her.
about getting, like, saying something that could be misconstrued because we talk about some controversial things, and then I'm afraid of, like, the things in the podcast episodes themselves being taken out of context, etc., etc. It hovers over us all at all times, the judgment of the internet, and it's not a fun place anymore because of that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think-
that brings me back to the whole like long form versus short form, right? And that, like, I think to Daly's point, probably all three of us have said something where if you sniffed it out, it'd be problematic. That 1 minute quote that Robert said, so problem, he's a racist because he said that, right? I think that's probably true, like possibly true for all three of us, because you can take context away from anything and it can be problematic. I mean, I think look no further than the reason ContraPoints was canceled like a year and a half ago, where it wasn't even the argument she made, it's the fact that she had Buck Angel read 10 seconds of a quote, of a John Waters quote. That's it. That's all it took. No other context around it. No understanding why or how it happened or what the larger point she's trying to make is. All that matters is she had Buck Angel in a video. That's it. That's the only thing you
Guilty
need
by
to know.
association.
Yeah, and so when you take context out of things, you can cancel any and everything. The question then becomes, who or what is worth canceling? Is it worth canceling large voices in leftist spaces that are generally trying to do a pretty good job of highlighting marginalized communities or trying to explain hard to understand controversial topics? Or is it worth pointing that cancel culture laser at people who deserve to be canceled, like Matt Gaetz, like
pedophiles,
like Trump?
Yep.
Yeah, like people who actually have done things and who have used and abused their status and power to do bad things and to enact bad things into the world.
Well said. I think really the closing statement that I have is the internet isn't real life, and sometimes that's really easy to forget.
I think we want to, my closing would be, I think we want to do good, and I think we've all gotten very lost along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I have some hope because of that initial seed of, like, I want to do good. I want to, call out bad behavior when I see it and hold people accountable. But method has not worked.
Mm-mm. And I know I pointed out earlier too, like cancel culture doesn't even work anymore, right? Because J.K. Rowling, Louis C.K., they're all doing very well anyway. But don't you think cancel culture would have a higher chance of working if it wasn't trying to cancel everyone?
Yeah.
And maybe that's not fair.
It loses its potency when it's everyone versus just, again, those people in power that have abused it.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I should clarify. I don't want to say everyone because that can sound like a very far right, they're trying to cancel everyone talking point. But if you're trying to cancel anyone who makes one small problematic tweet or has one small bad take, there's a problem there. What you should do is help them understand why that's a problematic take, not ruin their life. Try to throw them off Twitter or anything like that. Isn't doing anyone a service. That's just mob mentality.
Yeah, unless you're that girl who just got that job at NASA and like told that dude from NASA, she's like, yeah, fuck you, I just got a job at NASA. Don't do that.
Yeah,
And then she lost her
funny.
job at NASA. Sorry, it's funny.
That's a classic story.
Oh, yeah. Basically told the dude from NASA, suck a dick, dumb shit.
Yeah.
I got a job at NASA.
Like, basically strive to be perfect, but understand and have the humility that no one is perfect. Not even you, you special person. Like, have forgiveness.
Robert,
have humility.
Fuck you, Robert.
Okay.
I'm canceling you. I am perfect.
Okay, I'm sure you aren't.
I am absolutely flawless, and I've never had a bad take about anything ever. I dare you. No, please don't. Oh God, don't
you like
dig
Naruto,
up anything
that's
about
one,
me.
So.
Quick, everyone delete your Facebook cringe.
Yeah, really. Let me dig into the depths of my fanfic.net account that I don't remember the login for.
I'm just saying, if you manage to find me on Facebook, I actually have gone, like, I don't delete my stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to embrace the cringe, because pretty much all of it is like, none of it's offensive. It's just cringe. It's just cringe in the classic sense.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, lest we forget, of course, Daly's very popular threesome yaoi slash fic of Naruto, Itachi, and Sasuke.
You say Yahweh?
Yahweh?
Yeah, like the god?
Yaoi, yeah.
Like God?
Yahweh's in there. Just a little bit of religion in that threesome, you know?
Robert, I was a dreary fanficker, so actually, no.
That's some intense
I never
hentai.
published the Naruto ones. They existed, but I never published them publicly.
A light novel by Daly.
A light novel, excuse me. I wrote 128,000 words.
It's an anthology.
Right? She invented a new genre. It's called the heavy novel.
It's a heavy novel. The longest fan fiction, or longest piece of fiction in existence, is a Super Smash Bros. Fan fiction.
That's true.
Do not underestimate the power of fanfic authors, I guess. Let's have that be our final closing thought. Don't underestimate fanfic authors. Don't underestimate the internet. I want it to be a nice place, but instead it's filled with cancel culture and woke scolds and right-leaning people like Matt Gaetz that then take advantage of that. I don't want this to be like a very like everything sucks take, but things suck when you don't allow for nuance.
Yeah.
That'll be my hot take.
They suck more so than they don't. I'll say that.
Yeah, just do better. Be better. Like, scolding everyone. Well, the power of scolding doesn't work when everyone is scolded, right? When many people are scolded, it loses its power.
Stop yelling. Let's all just take it down a couple octaves. Everyone stop yelling.
Also,
Robert,
David, have the right Yakuza take.
David actually is the most problematic part of all this.
Full
is
circle.
David's Yakuza takes. Oh my gosh, guys. Okay. So thank you to David for listening. Sorry for calling you out specifically. If you'd like to call us out, you can do that at Twitter at everythinginpod, or on the emails everythinginpod@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys. Even if you think that you have like a totally different opinion and that we're not going to agree with you, nuance. Let's encourage nuance. Everything has nuance. Our next episode is going to be about Mortal Kombat again. So if you want to...
Mortal Kombat!
Thank you. Hopefully it's not Mortal Kombat in this comment section for this episode.
Really, though. But if you want to be part of that conversation, watch the film. Let us know what you think. And we will be talking about spoilers. So just be aware when you're listening next that at one point we'll be like, dun, 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 spoilers.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have a really great remix for that. But thanks for hanging out with us for as long as you have. Try not to be problematic, and we'll see you next time.
Words to live by. Try not to be problematic.
Our next podcast is going to be our insincere apology.
Yeah, we're gonna. There's gonna be tears, but like fake tears at some point. So look forward to that.
Just take a minute and admit.